How is Canada viewed by the rest of the world? The land of all dressed chips and ketchup chips. The best. I sent a treat box to my daughter that moved to Australia of all her Dave snacks that she can't eat there. Included ketchup chips and hickory sticks. Ketchup chips are just the most amazing thing ever. I'm a Canadian that went to Florida and I was very surprised that those weren't a thing. And I hate ketchup, but I love ketchup chips. In Brazil I always heard about good quality of life. Cold and friendly. Moose, nice people. Syrup, hockey and beer. And Ryan Reynolds. Keanu Reeves is ours, too. My friend thought it was a marijuana on their flag. I apologize. I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, right by the bridge to Canada. Love it over there, but holy duck, our guys drive slow when you're in the States. Lordy. I'm my butt off. My butt off. Edit. Thanks for the input. KS for the input. Never even occurred to me that our cops would be ducking Canadians with tickets. Ians with tickets. Drive safe, friends. It's a mind duck to drive in a country where the speed limit is in miles rather than kilometers. No one wants to give a fat ticket. Yeah, I know that. Driving in Canada is a blast because everyone's going like 30 kilometers per hour over the limit. Laugh. Nice. Friendly people. Good standard of living and stunning scenery. Canadians are up there with the Irish, Australians and New Zealanders. Everybody likes them. As a New Zealander, I always get excited when someone mentions my country online. As a Canadian I feel the same way. Better place to live. Throughout high school, 5 of my friends migrated there. Kinda funny how they acclimated to the cold. When they came back to visit us in the tropics, they were sweating a lot. German here. When I think of Canada, I think of it as bit like the US, but better educated and more civilized. Canadian here. This is basically how we like to think of ourselves also. That being said, there are ongoing anti-mask rallies in my city, so we are working hard to break that stereotype. Edit. See also. Duck Mark Donnelly. From the place I come, Canada is viewed as heaven, and if you can actually go there you're set to have a great life. Once again, from the place I come, it's easier to go to heaven than Canada. It's strange hearing my country be defined as heaven. Where are you from? They are probably American. I just think of Canada as that place where Poutine and Letterkenny come from. Wait, you can understand what they are saying? I live in rural Ontario and I can't make a word out. The only characters I have trouble understanding are the hockey players from Newfoundland and sometimes McMurray. A larger and colder France that makes lots of syrup. They also get very offended if you compare or associate them with America in any way, shape or form. We especially don't like being called America's hat. Looks like a very comfy place to live. Everyone I know who's traveled to the Americas preferred their time in Canada to anywhere else. Low-key fantastic film industry. Some of the best indie films have come from Canada and some of the most beloved film industry personalities are Canadian. Brilliant music scene too. Plus, yeah, I'd be surprised just how much of your American TV and movies are actually filmed in Canada. It definitely helps when you live in a place like Toronto. Toronto is virtually Canada's much tinier version of New York, which is probably why a lot of shows film there for New York City looking locations. I love that I sometimes see, before COVID, them filming the TV show The Boys, since that's all filmed here in Toronto. A sensible, sane version of their neighbors, and they kicked the Nazis out of my country. We love you, Netherlands. Thanks for the tulips. They gave us some very good celebrities, Ryan Reynolds and Jim Carrey to name a few. However, they also gave us Justin Bieber, who a couple of years ago was rather annoying on the radio. No return on damaged goods. I view as a more mellow America, like how America would be if it ditched its R15, traded in its big loud pickup truck for a Prius, took up hiking, and started a free-range organic chicken farm. But with hockey and Marlson. I've never been to Canada, but that's how I like to imagine it. So many big loud pickup trucks in Canada. So many. Well, mostly in Alberta. I can't speak for the rest of the world, only myself. Boring history. Large swaths of virtually uninhabited semi-tundra I cannot even visualize. Population centers mostly clustered across the southern border. Polite and civil in most social situations except sports related. Pretty big cultural difference between French and English speaking Canadians. Decent government but same type of crazy right wingers as almost everywhere. Great healthcare system. Best export, comedians. A bit too obsessed with syrup. Really big moose. And also Wendigos. Wendigo attacks are down 96% due to COVID lockdowns. So we got that going. Everything I know about Canada I learned from South Park and Loading Ready Run. It's all 100% accurate. Our flappy heads will tell you what life is all about. Polite people, welcoming to foreigners/immigrants. Some parts are very cold, beautiful and rich nature. The police officers with the red costumes, Moose, Celine Dion, Michael Bubble, and of course the very handsome Justin Trudeau. Happy, friendly and clean. Hope you do well. Generally favorably, I was a curler in the northeastern USA, and whenever the Canadians came down, they kicked our asses. One of my current coworkers is a guy from Alberta and he's an awesome dude. I hope they took you out for a beer or three after, as is tradition. Winner buys first round. Have a few drinks, maybe a few fights, go for a smoke, and we're all buds again. Hurry hard. I grew up in Michigan and we used to cross over into Canada quite a bit. I absolutely love Canada. Canadians are extremely nice, intelligent people. We always loved Sarnia and Windsor. Some of my best memories are of Quebec and Montreal. My favorite Canadian city is Toronto. Since I moved down south about 20 years ago I haven't been back to Canada in a while. I wonder if it's nice or it just looks nice, because it's next to a dumpster fire. Can't it be both? I don't know much, but they've got Ryan Reynolds, so they're doing something right. And Ryan Gosling. You're nice people and rednecks make dumb jokes about you. People politically think of it as heaven on the left, and Soviet Russia in the right. Obviously an exaggeration of both. Okay, now that I'm done reading other pepholes' opinion, I can make this. You almost never took consideration of summer. You always talk about hockey, maple syrup, the cold DCT, but never about the other seasons. I understand why, but Canada is a nice place in every season, but it's okay. PS, I didn't mean to offend anyone here, so please, if you are offended, tell me and I'll delete this. I'm so offended right now. Don't you ever ducking Mispel hockey again. I went to Canada on holiday with my girlfriend in 2011. Flew into Montreal from LA in December. At airport immigration I was redirected into a small waiting room full of seats without any explanation of what was happening. I knew something was off when I realized I was the only white guy in the waiting room. After waiting a while, I was called up to a counter and aggressively questioned for about half an hour by this really intimidating army looking dude about my intentions for visiting. I said I was there on holiday. He yelled at me that he didn't believe me, that no one came on holiday at this time of year. December is Australian summer holidays. After lots of back and forth, and my girlfriend breaking down into tears, I was allowed to leave. I hate to say it really soured my first impression of the country. I still don't know why I was flagged. Poutine was hella good though, and everyone else we met were really nice. Next time, fly into BC. At first I thought you said California until I reread it. Gotta get that accent under control, mate. Nah, but seriously, Canada is mostly portrayed as a decent place. Used to think about moving to Canada a few years back. Did a lot of research. So to me, it seems like Canada is a well-organized country and people's satisfaction of living is one of the highest. People seem to be nice, kind, and for foreigners, too. Of course they are considered too sorry by the rest of the world. The area is huge and there is few people for it. A lot of it pretty much inhabited and or inhabitable or very hard to. More lakes in Canada than in the rest of the world combined. I like the nature and Canada seems to be a lot about the nature. Also the country needs professionals, hence they have at least a few immigration programs for skilled workers. But regular jobs are also paid decent, since the minimum wage is not a starving to death one. Probably gets more difficult if you choose the biggest cities like Toronto. If I had a decent offer for experienced net developer, I'd probably move there even now, so if you need one, I'm the one to make contact with. D. As far as I know, Canada also doesn't take part a lot in armed conflicts currently. National sport lacrosse, and if I remember right, there was an effort to make hockey an official winter national sport. Overall, according to my research, it's one of the better countries to move to and have a peaceful life. Pretty much my view about it in those few sentences. The only armed conflict we have is with the Danish over Hans Island. They call it the Whiskey War, and it's the best goddamn war that's ever been waged. Never been to Canada. The only people I've met from Canada have been real scumbags, so I have no legit opinion. Probably similar to the US. Some jerks. Some sweethearts. I'm thinking Canada has more scenery though. Like endless trees everywhere. May I ask where you are? Genuinely interested to know where our worst are traveling to. Maple syrup and elk, and checkered white and red mantles and pancakes. A country with people that live there. The peaceful people of the world. They are the goodest cinnamon roll country, until you give them hockey sticks. Let's put it this way, me and my family live in the very southern parts of Canada, and someone traveling from the US asked my grandma how far he needed to get to find snow in the middle of summer. I guess everyone thinks it snows all year round and we live in igloos here. I was cross-border shopping at the hardware store in War and someone asked me the same question. In July, I said next door neighbor has a pile. I lived behind the ice rink where the Zamboni was parked. Polite but a bit too nice. Hey, duck eyebrow. Hey, I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me. You make too much of a big deal about syrup. Providing the world with syrup since the 18th century or thereabouts. The cool brother living above the crazy cowboy. Scott Pilgrim vs the world. Genuinely nice people who accept immigrants. America's neighbors never say they are Americans because they are not. Close bracket. Cold and filled with snow, moose, and some nice cozy cabins to live in. Google Maps is probably the easiest way. South Park, Terrence, and Philip. One of the cooler countries, but stay in the city cause bears will eat you. Yeah, I got one in my backyard. The US slightly gay, nicer, and not drunk cousin. In America, we feel like you're Mexico. Great people, unnecessary difficult border agents. Very positively, progressive, liberal without being overly socialist, multicultural, while having a strong national culture, good allies, industrialized, very solid in fact. I think Canada and New Zealand are in the golden zone at the moment. As a Minnesotan, I like you guys. We like you too. I live in NZ, and I somehow feel an affinity for Canada. Like they are a bigger northern hemisphere version of us. Rugged wilderness, friendly laid-back people who speak kinda funny and dumb fucks for next door neighbors. Kidding. I love Aussies. As an Australian, I think of them as cold Australia. I think they probably have more cultural parallels with you guys. But to me, they're our geographical cousins. A better version of America that's actually livable. At least, that's how I, a Brit, always viewed it. It's like a colder, less financially well-off America, where at least we get healthcare. Dental not included for some reason. Lots of my friends after high school moved to America to pursue their education and get into various industries that just aren't as lucrative up here. Honestly, Canada is a mixed bag and a lot of the great stuff you hear is exaggerated, but it's a nice place to live, and I never have to worry about medical bills. Canada is like the States, just cut off the two extremes in politics and economics. Like Americans, but sane. Extremely cold and a bit overrated. That's very accurate. Although Canada is a nice place, many places here are just sort of boring and don't meet the expectations of many people. At this point, I'd give up some of the excitement down here for some boring. The internet can fill in what I'm missing otherwise. It seems like a place receptive to immigrants. Yes, it is. The treatment of indigenous groups leaves much to be desired. Systemic racism towards the indigenous population, hidden behind a thin veil of herder Canadians are so friendly stereotypes. We've made really good progress though, and trying to make amends. Good for you, eh? mostly forgetting it exists for long periods of time. The best way to be alive is to not be noticed. Nice people. Gave me blinding lights. An aunt of mine lives in Ontario, so I imagine it's similar to Michigan and gets really cold in the winter. Summers are not too bad. America and Britain mixed, but still somewhat the diet version of both of those. I want to live there. It looks lovely and there is free healthcare. I hate America. I remember my Canadian cousins coming to visit the family in New Zealand when I was a kid. They were nice. Goofy, like socks with sandals goofy. I didn't get their jokes. They didn't get mine. Showed me how to throw a football with laces. Very pale. And super generous. Where all famous singers come from. A great nation of 10 provinces and 3 territories. Annoying because they are getting things much more right than we are, but are otherwise a lot like us. It means we have no excuse, but they have some similar problems, like racism and oppression toward the native people, and having a liberal party that is still too corporate/rich people friendly to be properly progressive, though their liberals are better than our Dems. Close bracket. / a United Statesian. As an American I view it as a flawed but good neighbor. Like the US, Canada has done some really FD up things to its indigenous population. There is also a francophone versus English thing going on that has threat and unity up there. Other than that, Canada was an amazing ally during WW2 and EP is a tragedy we share, but hits harder in Canada. Oh. And you produce some amazing comedians and performers. ! My portion of the rest of the world is Michigan. I've been actively petitioning my Canadian friends to convince the Canadian government to annex us. We are practically in Canada already, right? Especially if you're in the Upper Peninsula. Most of America doesn't even realize that's part of the US. So how about it? Seriously though, I've been across the border several times and I've always had a great experience. Canadian cities especially have a really cool vibe that's hard to explain, that I've not found in any American city. Love Toronto especially, and I had quick layovers in Calgary and Vancouver on a work trip recently that made me want to see more. My kids have been up to Sault Ste. Marie, where you can just look across the river at Canada, and they see Canada as an exotic foreign land. All I can think of when I think of Canada is maple syrup, moose, beaver, and discount Viking French people. I call you guys Snow Australians cause I feel like we are kinda similar. I'd gladly be associated with Australia. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.